Namaste, listeners. I'm with a very special guest, Katie Hopkins from the UK. Welcome, Katie.
Thank you very much for having me.
You know, for the benefit of my viewers, I want to introduce you as somebody with a lot of clarity and courage and conviction as a British person who is on the world stage explaining what is British identity, what are the issues, taking strong positions, not putting up with any nonsense, and all that is very good. And I really like all that. So I want to show a brief clip of a public position she took at great risk when there was a mob of Muslims on Diwali in front of the Indian High Commission, shouting slogans and trying to disrupt Diwali. She is the one person who stood up alone there in front of a whole mob and took them on. So let's watch this.
So this is the centre of London today. This is Diwali. This is the religious festival of Diwali. Do you really think that if this was Eid, it would be acceptable to have these protests on Eid? No. But because these guys are Pakistani, because Islam is taking over my country, this is the sort of protest that we're seeing. Not a single female here. All men protesting. And this is on Diwali. This is a religious festival. It's very difficult to imagine. Look at them.
It's beautiful to get people like this to come out and make fun of the people dying in the world.
This is what we have to
I hope you're proud. I hope you're proud of yourself. I hope you're proud of every action you do. You're happy for the women to be raped in Kashmir, being a female yourself. It's shameful.
Okay, so now I'm being attacked.
What a shameful situation you are.
By them.
You are born into a brutal family. You must look at your mother and father with your upbringing, because your upbringing must have been terrible. I feel sorry for you. Today you should side with the women of the world. Where is woman power, Katie Hopkins?
Look at the state of these people. Look, this is what we're up against on Diwali.
I feel sorry for you. We're giving you this bit of air coverage to make you feel important. Because the man who loves you, I feel sorry for him as well.
Pakistani men in England.
Today you should be standing with the women of Kashmir, standing with the women of the world, being a woman yourself.
Look at these big guys, look, attacking a
It's
woman.
so beautiful.
Look at these big guys.
Just to show this lady.
On Diwali, an Indian festival.
Your Twitter account is shameful.
Hating on Muslims again. Are you getting paid? Are you getting paid for hating on Muslims? Are you getting paid? You look drunk.
Are you drunk? This is the sort of place we're dealing with. Oh, don't spit food at me, sir.
So Katie, one of the topics I have written about, I have called Breaking India Forces, which is the forces that are breaking India apart from its traditional ancient civilizational foundation. And these forces are both internally based and stimulated from external forces. Would you say that the problems with Britain that you are concerned with are similar and could be called breaking Britain forces?
Absolutely. I think there's real parallels between your country, India, and what you've been writing about and what we see here in the UK. For me, there are forces at work that are actively seeking to dismantle any sense of patriotism, of pride, of nationalism that we have for our country. And those I would group those into three main things, which would be the globalists, the Islamists, and the feminists. And I think it's those three groups for me that we have a real problem with. But I think there is a real parallel. Your enemy is our enemy. And I feel very much like we are united in this fight with India against these forces that are seeking to destroy us.
How would you describe each of them? Let's start with globalists.
So globalists are the people that do not wish us to be proud of our country. They do not wish us to fly, for example, our flag. They do not want us to fly the St. George's Cross, which is the red cross on the white background. They call it a racist symbol. They no longer want countries, in fact, to exist. They want us all to be part of one big global community, and they want supranational organizations to have control over us. And those are the people we're up against. The globalists want to destroy any pride in the nation state.
Yeah, so one of the intellectual movements which brought this about is called postmodernism. And postmodernism says that because of all the flaws of modernism, modernism created all kinds of problems, which there were, but they decided to go overboard and get rid of any national identity, any sense of grand narrative, whether it's a religious grand narrative, whether it's your traditional grand narrative, whether it's the grand narrative of family values, whether it's a grand narrative of nation, as long as it's a grand narrative, according to them, it abuses and it privileges certain people and oppresses other people. So they've rewritten history through this postmodernist lens. And the interesting thing is that this postmodernism started in France, and then some Indian people who were academics in the US, left-wing, ultra-left-wing, they translated this into English, this discourse, and then it spread into the English world, like Gayatri Spivak, Homi Bhabha, these kind of people, famous people in Columbia University, Harvard University, the very intellectual types. They created this, they brought this postmodernism into the English-speaking world, and from there it has spread. And it went into India, where a very large number of people in the academic sense call themselves postmodernists. They're very proud of it. And their whole passion in life is to undermine the sense of Indianness. And I think there's something similar happening in the UK, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, you're absolutely right. It's almost, I mean, it's the same. And if I take a very recent example, we just had a terrorist incident, a terrorist attack on London Bridge. And actually, that terrorist attack was a perfect storm of globalist, leftist academics believing that you can rehabilitate jihadis, and the country, Britain, that is in the grip of Islamism. And basically, because these academics believed you could rehabilitate jihadis, they had brought that jihadi into London, and that's when he committed his attack. So globalists seek to destroy even the family unit. You know, anything that children, young people belong to, they want to rip it apart. And this is the real sadness of where we're at in our societies, is they are destroying the things that we used to belong to make everybody a citizen of nowhere, to make everybody a nomad that does not belong.
So the problem I see with this ideology which is spreading is that while attempting to get rid of all power structures, they are creating a vacuum which will be filled by the nefarious and nastiest of the power structures. So since humanity is not ready at this point to have no power structure at all, I mean, we are not evolved to a point where every human being will just be fine with no sense of identity. We are not there yet. But if we try to get rid of these identity structures, narratives of nation and so on, then what happens is this vacuums always get filled. A vacuum always gets filled with something. So it gets filled with things like Islamism, things that want to take over this power structure. So I think this may be the reason why these globalists, postmodernists, and Islamists seem to work together. Now, the next issue you mentioned was Islamism in UK. So tell us a little bit about why that's a problem.
Yes, I believe our country is being taken over from within. I am already a minority in my capital city, London. White people are a minority. By 2035, Muslim births outnumber births to all other religions in my country. And by 2050, I am a minority. We are a Muslim majority country. Now, you could say that doesn't matter, but our Muslim majority don't want to integrate into Britain. They want to build something isolated, unique, separate from our culture. I'm a minority in Birmingham, in Bradford, in Luton, in Leicester. I could list you the towns and cities. Increasingly, people feel like we don't belong. And increasingly, we feel like we're being forced out from within. And that power that sits in the hands of the Islamists is also political power. So our Labour Party, the left, will soon in my lifetime become the Islam Party, I believe.
So this is sort of like Britanistan, some kind of Britanistan being created.
That's exactly right. People talk about Londonistan.
Right.
Our Pakistani migrants here, they actually speak of little Pakistan. And so there is a sense, increasingly Christian families like mine are looking eastwards towards Poland, towards Hungary, towards countries that have been more robust in their defense of the culture that we love.
So you might end up becoming minorities and refugees in your own country.
Absolutely. And I think that is most clearly indicated by our Jewish population, who are already being forced out and are leaving for Israel. And I believe that's what the white Christian community will move eastwards to Poland and Hungary. And that is why watching Modi and his brilliant and brave defiance to stand up and be proud of being a patriot and a nationalist really matters, because that's the parallel fight back that we need in my country as well.
Now, how would you address the issue of non-Muslims, Scottish, Irish, who also want to separate? Would you say that a white Christian England and a white Christian Scotland and a white Christian Ireland, or would you say it's better to have a white Christian United Kingdom?
I would have said I would always be somebody who was here for kind of Britannia. I think we're always stronger together. However, I think if you're realistic about the fact that I am a strong Brexiteer, I voted to leave the Union, I voted to leave the EU, I think it's hypocritical to do that and then say, well, Scotland can't want to decide its own destiny, or Ireland the same.
Yeah.
I do think the Union will eventually be broken apart because we no longer share those common values that we used to share. The strength of the Union is very weak right now, as you'll be able to see.
So do you think that short term Europe may break up, and then there may be different parts of Europe that want to be resisting Islam and come back together as a new kind of a Christian Europe, and then there may be two kinds of Europe: a Christian Europe and the non-Christian will be Islamized Europe. So there may be a Eurostan kind of a Europe and a Christian Europe.
I believe that's spot on. I believe that's precisely what will happen. By 2050, we're outnumbered and that flight will be on. I think there will be a reorganizing, a reshaping of Europe. There will be Islamic-controlled Europe that will extend from Turkey across nations that will fall to Islam. And I believe there will be a Christian base that will be Eastern European in nature. I think there will be flight from England to countries like Poland, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, and those countries will stand together and become the new Christian Europe. But that division will happen. I think there will be a breakup.
So such breakups and reorganizations generally require violence, and hence there would have to be a new crusades, because it's not going to be easy for both sides to accept boundaries. There will be a lot of contentious areas, a lot of turf battles. Who owns this territory? Who owns that town? Who owns this particular river? And so as a certain pole of Christian Europe consolidates and another pole of Muslim Europe consolidates, there'll be a lot of ground for fighting. And this means there would be a return of the Crusades. Do you think that's inevitable?
I think there will come a time that confrontation will happen. But I think what's really interesting, somebody spoke to me about this parable, about how it used to be that fantastic wine was grown in the United Kingdom. And America came over to take some of our vines and plant them in California so they could grow wine. And one time there was this massive blight, this winter blight, and all of their vines died. And they had to come back to the UK to take some more vines and replant their vineyards. And I believe what's going to happen actually now is that the same will happen in reverse. We will have to go to America to recapture our Christian culture and our Christian heritage and replant it across Europe. And I think that's the really interesting parallel, is that America and indeed India are going to be key to keeping the Christian culture alive.
So this takes me to a different issue. If Britain should be Christian, then should India be Hindu?
Then you get a yes from me, of course. And having watched what's happened in Kashmir and the way that our mainstream media have been entirely duplicitous about the truth, or what seems to be the truth in Kashmir, about the changes that Modi has managed to achieve for females, for minorities, that is not being represented in our mainstream media at all.
Now, let's shift from Britain to the India situation.
Yes.
The left in India is playing a very dirty game of bringing together not only Islamists, but also Christian evangelists. Now, this is something very important for Western Christians to understand, that while in the West they are fighting Islam, in India they are becoming aligned with Islam to fight Hinduism. So, and the glue is the left. So the Indian left has become kind of this anti-grand narrative, anti-nation, anti-Hinduism as a result of that, and therefore they are saying we will bring together all the forces that are against the country, and hence we will bring together all these minorities and so on. Now, this is sort of a very strange thing, because when I talk to Christians in the United States and UK, it's people like you I resonate with. And when I talk to Christians in India, they are so leftist and so much aligned with the Islam. Now, this contradiction needs to be resolved if we are to move forward and fight the really problematic forces worldwide. This problem has to be resolved, and I think we need a coalition of people who can see the big picture and who can say that the small little fights here and there have to be compromised for the sake of a bigger picture, for the sake of a bigger geopolitical future at stake. What do you think of that?
That is exactly a situation we have here. So we have, for example, leftist Jewish organizations who are siding with the Islamists, and they try and shut people like me down. The leftist Catholic organization will side with the Islamists. We have something called, perhaps you have it as well, interfaith, where they try and sell the idea that we're all the same, we're all on the same team, and people lap this up. So we have that same problem of certain faiths allying themselves with the Muslim and Muslim Council and the Islamists. And I don't know why they do it. Do they think it will save them? I don't know the answer.
Yeah, this is very good. I'm glad you feel this way, because one of the ideas that I have promoted a lot is the problem of sameness. The problem of sameness, which is a fraud, which is a fake. I prefer difference with mutual respect, which means you're different, I'm different, but I respect you as you are. Certainly men and women are different and they should respect each other. They shouldn't say that we are the same, we are the exact. Equality does not mean being same. You can have equal rights, but you can have your own distinctiveness. So same way, all the narratives, including spiritual, religious narratives, have a distinctiveness about them. And we should have difference with mutual respect. That's my slogan, as compared to either tolerance, because tolerance is very patronizing. I want to go beyond tolerance and go to mutual respect. And you know, it's very interesting. Soon after 9/11, the Pakistani Muslim community wanted to be real brotherly with the Indians because they were scared. So they were courting people like me to come and talk in some friendly way. So I was invited to a radio show in Dallas. I was there, and it was a Pakistani host, and this lady says, she's very full of praise and says, I love your mutual respect idea, and I want to welcome you to Dallas and offer you mutual respect from the entire Pakistani Muslim community. So I said, I'm very glad that you respect the fact that I worship deities that may be including feminine deities, female deities, and I actually believe in karma and reincarnation, and I have no problem with worshipping images, and I'm really glad that you respect all this. So they hung up. This was a caller who hung up, because you see, this fraud of okay, we'll respect you kind of is actually a fraud, because when you look at the facts, the thing is that there are differences, but we have to say that I respect your faith, your history, and what you practice is fine for you, but I want you to do the same for me. I'm not here to convert you, and I don't want to be converted myself. So we have a coalition of faiths that are respecting each other with differences. I think that's a very powerful thing we should start.
It's really powerful, and it drives through lots of different areas that the globalists work on to make us all the same. So in our schools, our children are being taught that there's no such thing as gender. There's no such thing as difference between men and women, male and female, that you can be whoever you woke up feeling like you were. The trans indoctrination of our children, this idea of sameness, that we're all the same, so we're all as one. And as you rightly say, when you drill down just below the surface, it's actually a contrivance to try and make us complicit as we bow down and allow ourselves to be taken over. And I met a really interesting migrant in Finland, and his point was that the left only want to tolerate the other. But if the other has an opinion or starts to learn a language or has views, they don't want anything to do with them anymore. And so that's why I think you're right on your point that being tolerated is actually very demeaning.
It's like, imagine a colleague in the office saying, I tolerate you to be in my office, or a spouse saying, I tolerate you to have dinner with me. I mean, that's an insult. I mean, what's wrong with me that you have to tolerate me? So I think we should raise the discourse to mutual respect, difference with mutual respect.
You're right. You're right. I'm certain of it. And I'm certain of the idea that we have to be passionate about preserving what we love about our nation, our flag, our language, our religion, our anthem.
So this has been a very good, productive conversation, the first of many that we should have. I wanted to introduce you to my viewers, and I want my viewers to look up Katie Hopkins. I will give you the Twitter feeds and various things, and I want people to follow her, because I want to continue this conversation, and I want to see if we can develop some kind of a mobilization, some kind of a movement which will bring these ideas together from UK and India.
Great. I think it's really important. And as you know, it's your Indian embassy that was cruelly defaced and vandalized in London because we have a Pakistani mayor. And I'm ashamed that happened. I apologize that happened in England. And all I can say is that there are people like myself who will not allow that to stand, and we will keep fighting back for India and for our pride.
Tell our viewers, why did the people of London vote and elect a Pakistani mayor who is clearly not neutral?
The takeover of our country works in a very simple way. A Muslim population is flooded into an area. All of the white people move out. So now you have 4 or 5 Muslim families where there used to be one family. Now mosques spring up to facilitate those families. Funding flows in, and now they coordinate how they vote. So in London, they are densely packed populations of Muslims who vote according to their religion. And that is why we have a Muslim mayor. because the boroughs of London have the most densely packed Muslim populations in this country. And it's why he's still the mayor, even though he's failing miserably, he is still in power because his densely packed Muslim voting base will keep him in power. And for example, recently, he threw a party for his Muslim community in the centre of London. We have a Muslim police force. We have a Muslim housing association. So he has political support because of his religion.
Do you think that the future has to involve a reformation of Islam? Do you think that Muslims who are genuine and honest about the future of humanity and who are realistic that they cannot take over the world, they'll just create more violence, they need to start a project? In Europe, the Reformation took a long time and it was violent, it was not easy, because to reform something that old takes a while. So this process needs to get started for Islam's own sake, because then it can be a reformed Islam, a more modern Islam, scientific Islam, progressive in many ways. In fact, the liberal left, the globalists should promote that, because if they want to promote human rights and all kind of things that they claim, then one of those things should be to reform Islam.
Agreed. And my sense is that we are a very, very long way away from reform, because at the moment we're in a period of silencing, of getting people to be quiet about the problem. So we have a problem with Pakistani gangs raping our young white daughters, and we are told that we aren't allowed to talk about it. We're not allowed to report about it. And because I did report about it a couple of weeks ago, I had the police at my door in my home telling me that I had to be quiet or I would go to prison. So I think we are a long way from reform. We're in a period of acceptance and appeasement at the moment.
So if we are in denial because the discourse, the intellectual discourse, has been taken over by the left in alliance with the Islamists, even though it's bad for the so-called ideals and values of the left and the ideals of human rights, but they are hypocrites. So while they have one set of ideals, in practice they are supporting, a kind of religious doctrine which is very against human rights, if you think about it. And we have feminists, Western feminists, but they are not calling out the hypocrisy of the rights that women don't have in Islam. So I think what you are saying is the first stage has to be call the bluff, and that is what you're doing, to spread awareness, to let people know that this duplicity should end. And once there's more honest dialogue, then we can move forward and everybody can say, okay, we all have some homework to do and some house cleaning to do, and Islam has its own problems, everybody else has their own problems, and then we can collectively build a new civilization. But we are not there yet. Is that what you're saying?
That's precisely what I'm saying. And I think very interestingly, the point will come, this point of change will happen because when the LGBT, the lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans agenda butts up against the Islamists, as it does already in the UK, that is where the monster almost eats its own tail. The tolerant left are challenged because Islamists are not tolerant of LGBT. And we see that already. The left don't know what to do because they want both sides, but they're going to have to choose. And I think that is the point where we will see the fracture line happen.
So this two-headed monster with extreme leftist ideas in one side and the Islamism on the other side has been busy fighting outsiders, has been busy eating up other people. But what you are saying is that at some point in time they'll fight each other because they'll each go to such an extreme. It'll be unavoidable for them to have clashes and conflicts with each other because the trajectory of the feminists towards LGBT, etc., is diametrically opposite to what the mullahs and the imams are preaching. And so when they start bringing their LGBT into the mosque, you're going to have some big flare-ups.
There you go. That is it. And right now in Birmingham in the UK, we have schools where Muslim parents protest outside the school. They want the school shut because the school teaches LGBT teaching. And the Labour MPs, the leftists, won't say which side they're on because they can't. And that's going to be the fracture point, is the extreme left and feminists versus the Islamists. And eventually that will have to tear apart.
So they've scored a self-goal.
Exactly.
And a big contradiction.
Exactly. And it's why I spend a lot of time with the Muslim parents at those schools, because me bringing noise to this helps illuminate their own hypocrisy.
So Katie, this has been a wonderful, wonderful conversation. I'm very glad that you are doing what you're doing, because you're bringing new ideas, new provocations, and the discourse is better with more diverse ideas, and your ideas need to be at the table. And I would love to collaborate with you and talk further on various issues.
Sounds perfect. I very much enjoyed our conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank
Namaste.
you.
Thank you for watching. You can subscribe here and also hit the bell icon to make sure you get notified. To donate, please click this button.